Yes, so last day we had already read about the prologue and the dedication of Goldsmith's She Stoops to Conquer. Now, today we are going to start with the very first act, Act 1, Scene 1. Now, see, since we are into the text now, and I have already said to you that you need to go into the very nitty gritties, very details of the text. So I will be pointing out places where you need to focus, okay, while dealing with the text. Now, the very first thing that you need to remember for your SSC examinations is that I told you already in my earlier class that questions are set on the various information that are scattered all over the text. So you need to be very careful regarding jotting them down or noting them down whenever you are reading the text. Okay, so the very first thing that make sure that you are well aware of the places where the acts take place. Okay, the very first act or the act 1 and scene 1, act 1 is divided into two scenes, act 1 and scene 1 and act 1 scene 2. Okay, but the location of the scenes are different. Okay, the very first scene takes place in a chamber in an old fashioned house. So it is a very rambling and a dilapidated house, old fashioned house, and it's a chamber, a kind of a drawing room. So we are first introduced with the two main characters of the play, Mr. Hardcastle and Mrs. Hardcastle. Okay, Mrs. Hardcastle and Mr. Hardcastle are involved in a conversation, and we are actually introduced to the two characters in the middle of the conversation. So they are actually in the middle of the conversation, and we get a peek into the conversation in the following way. So I read the text and I'll be explaining a few lines. I will be skipping a bit or two when necessary. Okay, so follow the text well. Mrs. Hardcastle says, I vow, Mr. Hardcastle, you are very particular. Is there a creature in the whole country but ourselves that does not take a trip to the town now and then to rub off the rust a little? There's the two Miss Hoggs and our neighbour, Mrs. Grisby, go to take a month's polishing every winter. Now, the very first theme that we are introduced at this exposition of the two characters is the dichotomy or the juxtaposition of the country life and the city life. Okay, the country life versus the city life. Mrs. Hardcastle says, I vow, I say that Mr. Hardcastle, you are very particular. You are very particular to the point of obstinacy. You are very particular to the point of arrogance, rather. So is there a creature in the whole country but ourselves that does not take a trip to town now and then? So Mrs. Hardcastle says that there is not a single person in the whole country except themselves who never goes to the city of London to polish off their manners, to rub off the rust a little. Okay, to polish off their manners. There's the two Miss Hoggs and our neighbour, Mrs. Grigsby, go to take a month's polishing every winter. So every winter, these two characters, please underline, please note them, Miss Hoggs and Mrs. Grigsby, who go to the town for every month during the winter season to acquire the manners and the fashions and the lifestyle of the city. Okay. Now Mr. Hardcastle says, Aye, and bring back the vanity and affectation to last them the whole year. So they are going to the city to get themselves polished, and they are bringing back vanity and they are bringing back artificiality and affectation from the city to last them for the whole year. So notice the sarcasm here in Hardcastle's speech. And I wonder why London cannot keep its own fools at home. In my time, the follies of the town crept slowly among us. So In my times, the manners of the town, okay, which according to Mr. Hardcastle is vain, okay, is very artificial, is very shallow, they actually slowly seeped into the country, okay, and that space and the rate was very slow. But now they travel faster than a stagecoach. But now they are traveling faster than even a stagecoach. Its fopperies come down not only as inside passengers but in the very basket. So the fopperies of the country life, okay, the fopperies of the city life, they are actually coming to the country not only as inside passengers but in the very basket, okay. Now this line needs special attention because here Mr. Hardcastle says that the fopperies or the values of the city life, they are slowly coming to the countryside or coming at a very fast rate to the countryside than even a stagecoach. And now here he says that they are coming not only as inside passengers but also in the very basket. A basket is actually an additional coach, not actually a coach, okay, an additional a coach which was attached to the stagecoach at the back for carrying luggages, okay. Now sometimes the rich people, they used to carry their servants, okay, and the menials in the basket, okay. So the basket were meant for the poor people. So Mr. Hardcastle says that not only the rich people of the country, they are taking up the manners of the city, but also the poor people, the unrefined people, the uneducated people, the common people, they are also now picking up the lifestyle of the country. Mrs. Hardcastle says, your times were fine times indeed. You have been telling us of them for many a long year. Here we live in an old rumbling mansion. So this old rumbling mansion that looks for all the world like an inn. Now this is very important because this line is very important because here Mrs. Hardcastle for the first time compares the old rumbling mansion where they live to an inn. Okay, this actually is going to set the very stage where the house of Mr. Hardcastle and Mrs. Hardcastle will be mistaken as an inn, okay, later in the play. So but that we never see company, so we never see visitors often in our place. Our best visitors are old Mrs. Oddfish, the curate's wife, and little Cripplegate, the lame dancing master, and all our entertainment, your old stories of Prince Eugene and the Duke of Marlborough. I hate such old-fashioned trumpery. So they have two visitors, please note, Mrs. Oddfish, the curate's wife, okay, and little Cripplegate. Curate is actually an assistant to a priest at a parish church. So, and hence, it's not at all to the liking of Mrs. Hardcastle because we can expect that Mrs. Oddfish, the wife of the assistant to the parish priest, will actually is expected to be a very religious woman, a pious woman, okay, preachy in his tone, very boring for Mrs. Hardcastle to deal with. And the lame dancing master, little Cripplegate, and the entertainment for the evening was actually or were actually concentrated to the old stories which Mr. Hardcastle often said of Prince Eugene and the Duke of Marlborough. Okay, so Prince Eugene was an Italian prince who actually helped the Duke of Marlborough to fight against the French, and the Duke of Marlborough actually defeated the French in the famous battle of Blenheim. Okay, so we have a famous poem after Blenheim, so you must be familiar with that. This war or this battle took place in the year 1704, and the Duke of Marlborough actually led the English army in the Battle of Blenheim against the French, and Prince Eugene actually was an Italian prince who helped the Duke of Marlborough. Hardcastle says, and I love it. I love everything that is old. So Hardcastle is such a character who loves everything that is old. Old friends, old times, old manners, old books, old wine, and I believe Dorothy actually the name for Mrs. Hardcastle, you own, I have been pretty fond of an old wife. So you will agree that I am not only familiar or not only agreeable to everything that is old, but I am also fond of my pretty old wife. Now, Mrs. Hardcastle is very annoyed, okay, because Mr. Hardcastle calls Mrs. Hardcastle to be old. Okay, you may be a Lord Mr. Hardcastle, you are forever at your Dorothy's and your old wives. You may be a Darby, but I'll be no Juan, I promise. I am not so old as you would make me by more than one good year. Add 20 to 20 and make money of that. So here actually we have a reference to two characters, Darby and Juan. Okay, so this actually was taken from a contemporary short story named The Joys of Love Never Forgot. The Joys of Love Never Forgot. That was actually a contemporary short story which was very popular during that time. It actually narrated the story of two old characters, an old husband whose name was Darby and his wife Joan. They were exceedingly fond of each other, and the main theme of the story was true love in among old people. Okay, true love among old people. So this story was again very didactic in tone, always actually stressing on the value of true love. Now Mrs. Hardcastle says that you may be a Darby, you may be just like a Darby, but I'll be no Joan to you. So at 20 to 20, so Mrs. Hardcastle hints that her age is 40. Okay, please take note. Mrs. Hardcastle hints add 20 to 20 and make money of that. So add 20 to 20 and the sum gives my age. So Mrs. Hardcastle, according to Mrs. Hardcastle, she is 40 years of age. Hardcastle says, let me see, added 20, 20 added to 20 makes just 57. Now this is the real age of Mrs. Hardcastle, that is 57. It's false, Mr. Hardcastle. I was but 20 when I was brought to bed of Tony. So when I was 20 years of age, I gave birth to Tony, and that I had by Mr. Lumpkin. So Mr. Lumpkin is the former husband of Mrs. Hardcastle. Okay, so that I had by Mr. Lumpkin, my first husband, and he is not come to years of discretion yet. So Tony has not come yet to the age of discretion, that is 21 years of age. So according to this calculation of Mrs. Hardcastle, she is 40 years of age, but she is actually 57. Hardcastle says, nor ever will. So Tony will never come to the age of discretion. I dare answer for him. So I can say of him that he will never come to the age of discretion. You have taught him finely. Okay, so Mr. Hardcastle is very ironical in his tone. Okay, here, you have taught him finely. So Tony has been well taught by you, Mrs. Hardcastle, and he will never come to the age of discretion. Mrs. Hardcastle says, no matter, Tony Lumpkin has a good fortune. Tony Lumpkin has a good fortune. My son is not to live by his learning. So there is no need of him to live by his knowledge. There is no need of him to live by his learning. Okay, so I don't think a boy wants much learning to spend 1500 a year. So he is actually a person who has a good fortune of 1500 a year. Okay, so 1500 a year, take note, 1500 a year, and Mrs. Hardcastle says that that is sufficient for Tony, and he need not live by his learning. Learning, quota, a mere composition of tricks and mischief. Oh, you say learning. You are saying learning. Tony is nothing but a mere composition of tricks and mischief. So he is made of nothing but trickery and mischievousness. Okay, so he has nothing to do with learning. Mrs. Hardcastle says, humor, my dear. Nothing but humor. It is his temper. It is his humor. Nothing but humor. Come, Mr. Hardcastle, you must allow the boy a little humor. So you must make certain allowance for his natural tendency or for his natural inclination. Okay. For humor, Hardcastle says, I would sooner allow him a horse pond. If burning the footmen's shoes, frightening the maids, and worrying the kittens be humor, he has it. So here Mr. Hardcastle mentions some of the mischievous acts of Tony, like burning the shoes of the footmen, frightening the young girls, and tormenting the kittens or worrying the kittens, disturbing the kittens. Be humor, he has it. If you can call these as humor, he has it. It was but yesterday he fastened my wig to the back of my chair. So he actually tied my wig to the back of my chair. So they were always in the habit of wearing wigs at special occasion. And when I went to make a bow, I popped my bald head in Mrs. Frizzle's face. So when I was actually doing a bow to Mrs. Frizzle, my bald head popped because Tony had fastened my wig to the back of the chair. Mrs. Hardcastle, and am I to blame for that? Am I to blame? The poor boy was always too sickly to do any good. The poor boy has been so sickly that he could do hardly any good in his life. A school would be his death. So, if I had sent him to school, that would actually be his death. Okay. A school would do his death. When he comes to be a little stronger, who knows what a year or two's Latin may do for him. So, if he improves, if his health improves, a year or two studying of Latin will do wonders for him. Okay. So, the mother is so very confident about the child. Okay, or Tony. Mr. Hardcastle says, Latin for him. A cat and a fiddle. It's actually a cat and a fiddle. It's all nonsense. No, the alehouse and the stable are the only schools he will ever to go. So Tony is always fit to be in a low, vile and a base company. So the alehouse and the stable, these are the only two places, okay, where Tony frequents and which is appropriate for Tony. Okay, he need not go to a school. Mrs. Hardcastle says, well, we must not snub the poor boy. We must not chide the poor boy like that. For I believe we shall not have him long among us. So, Mrs. Hardcastle fears that Tony will not be living for a long time. Okay, anybody that looks in his face may see he is consumptive. So, if anyone has a closer look at Tony's face, he will understand that he is consumptive. He is suffering from tuberculosis. Hardcastle says, hi, if growing too fat be one of the symptoms, if growing too fat is one of the symptoms of consumption, then he is certainly so. Mrs. Hardcastle says, he coughs sometimes. Then Hardcastle says, yes, when his liquor goes the wrong way. That means when he drinks hastily and the liquor goes down the windpipe instead of the foot pipe, then he coughs. Mrs. Hardcastle says, I'm actually afraid of his lungs. I'm actually afraid about the condition of his lungs. Now Hardcastle says, and truly so am I. I am also afraid of the same. For he sometimes whoops like a speaking trumpet. Right? He is sometimes shouting and whooping like a trumpet. Now at that time Tony is shouting behind the scenes and that can be heard. Tony hallooing behind the scenes. Hallooing is shouting. Oh, there he goes. A very consumptive figure truly. So he is actually a very consumptive figure. A person who is genuinely suffering from consumption. Yes. Enter Tony crossing the stage. Now Tony enters the stage. Mrs. Hardcastle, Tony, where are you going, my charmer? Okay, so Tony, my darling, where are you going now? Won't you give Papa and I a little of your company, lovey. So won't you give a little time to your father and your mother? Tony, I am in haste, mother. I cannot stay. So I am in a great haste. So I am in a great hurry. I cannot stay. Mrs. Hardcastle says, "You shall not venture out this raw evening. You shall not go out this raw evening, because this evening is very raw. This evening is bitingly cold. You look most shockingly. So you look so dreadfully sick. You are so very sick." Tony, "I can't stay, I tell you. The three pigeons expects me down every moment." So please note the name of the alehouse where Tony is going. The Three Pigeons. The Three Pigeons is the name of the alehouse where Tony is going. Okay. So the Three Pigeons expects me down every moment. There's some fun going forward. Hardcastle, the alehouse, the old place. I thought so. Mrs. Hardcastle is now annoyed and say, "A low, paltry set of fellows." So you have a low, very paltry, worthless set of fellows over there who will be accompanying you, who will be there to accompanying you in the alehouse. Tony says, "Not so low neither. There's Dick Muggins." Please note the names. Okay, there's Dick Muggins, the excise man. Excise man is the collector of excise duties, the tax collector. Okay, Jack Slang, the horse doctor. Okay, Jack Slang, the horse doctor. The little Aminadab that grinds the music box, and Tom Twist that spins the pewter platter. Okay, so here we have the names of four friends. Okay, Dick Muggins, the excise man. Please take note. Dick Muggins, the excise man or the tax collector, the collector of excise duties. Then Jack Slang, the horse doctor, who is supposed to be the veterinary doctor. The little Aminadab, who grinds the music box. Here grinds actually means repairs. Okay, repairs the music box, and Tom Twist that spins the pewter platter. Okay, so Tom Twist is actually a waiter at a restaurant. Okay, a waiter at a restaurant. They used to entertain the guest by actually revolving the plate while bringing the food to the table. Okay, so now they all belong to the working class. They all belong to the working class, and Tony is a person who is having 1,500 pounds a year. Okay, so 1,500 a year, and Tony is actually amalgamating or mixing with these people, these very vile people, which according to Mrs. Hardcastle are set of paltry fellows. Okay, now Mrs. Hardcastle says, "Pray, my dear, disappoint them for one night." So won't you disappoint your friend for a night, at least for the sake of us? Tony, "As for disappointing them, I should not much mind. So I am not at all bothered of disappointing my friends, but I can't abide to disappoint myself. I cannot endure to disappoint myself. If I don't go to the alehouse, the Three Pigeons, I will be disappointing myself, which I don't want to do." Mrs. Hardcastle tries to detain him and says, "You shall not go. You shall not go." Tony says, "I will, I tell you. I will definitely go, I tell you." Mrs. Hardcastle says again, I say you shall not. You shall not go." Tony says, "We will see which is the strongest, you or I." Exit hauling her out. So exit the stage, dragging her out. Now here we have a very short soliloquy of Mr. Hardcastle. We have a very short soliloquy of Mr. Hardcastle, where actually Mr. Hardcastle pours his heart out about Mrs. Hardcastle and Tony. He is completely disgusted with the mother-son duo. Okay, and he says here that the mother pampers the son and the son actually pampers the mother. There goes a pair that only spoil each other. So very important, if this line is quoted in your question, there goes a pair that only spoil each other. Which pair is referred to here? Okay, Is it Miss Hardcastle and Marlowe? Is it Hastings and Neville? Is it Mr. Hardcastle and Mrs. Hardcastle? Or Mrs. Hardcastle and Tony Lumpkin? Okay, so these are the four options. So you can expect a question like this in your examination. There goes a pair that only spoil each other. But is not the whole age in a combination to drive sense and discretion out of doors? Okay, now Mr. Hardcastle puts forth the rhetorical question. Okay, he questions himself and he gives the answer himself. Okay, a rhetorical question where he says that, where he actually thinks that the whole age is in a combination to drive sense and discretion out of the doors. The whole age, the people of these times, they are headlong into driving away good sense and right thinking, right bent of mind out of doors. There's my pretty darling Kate. So he is saying as if Kate is very different from them, but not really. Okay, we will understand. There's my pretty darling Kate, his daughter. The fashions of the times have almost infected her too. Now he is very worried about his daughter Kate. Okay, the fashions of the times have almost infected her too. So she is also infected by the fashions of the times. By living a year or two in the town, please underline, Kate lived in London for a year or two. She is as fond of gauze and French frippery as the best of them. Okay, so gauze is actually a thin transparent cloth. Okay, a very thin and refined, a very transparent cloth, which was not considered to be appropriate. Okay, by Mr. Hardcastle. Okay, so by living a year or two in the town, she is as fond of gauze and French frippery. Okay, frippery is actually the shallow, showy nature, the very exhibitionist nature, a person who displays, okay, as the best of them. Now enter Miss Hardcastle. Here, Kate enters the stage. Kate Hardcastle, the daughter. Now Hardcastle says, blessings on my pretty innocence. So he calls his daughter pretty innocent. Okay, pretty innocent. Dressed out as usual, my Kate. So you are dressed out as usual, very fashionably, Kate. Goodness, what a quantity of superfluous silk hast thou got about thee. So such a huge, your dress is made up of such a huge quantity of silk, such a huge amount of silk, and this is all useless. This is all useless. I could never teach the fools of this age. I have tried so much to teach good values to the people of this age, but no, all my teachings have fallen on their deaf ears. Okay. And the indigent world could be clothed out of the trimmings of the vein. Now, he says that the poor world, the indigent world, the poor world, the world which is full of poor people and needy people, they can make clothes out of the trimmings of the vein. Okay, so out of the trimmings of the vein. Vein here is actually personified. So the trimmings of the vein. Vein actually stands for the vain people, the people who are vainglorious, the people who are actually fond of affectations, fond of artificiality. So clothed out of the trimmings of the vain people. Okay, so the amount of silk that has gone into making the dress of Kate Hardcastle can well actually make clothes for many needy people. That is actually what Mr. Hardcastle says. Okay, out of the trimmings, out of the cuttings of her dress. Now Miss Hardcastle says, you know our agreement, sir. Now here we are introduced to one very good agreement which has been between the daughter and the father. Okay, you know our agreement, sir. You are already aware of my agreement. You allow me the morning to receive and pay visits. In the morning, you allow me to receive guests and pay visits to my friends, and to dress in my own manner, according to my liking. And in the evening, I put on my housewife's dress to please you. In the evening, when the evening comes, I put on my housewife's dress to please you. Hardcastle says, well, remember, I insist on the terms of our agreement. So I am insisting on the terms of our agreement. I am not actually withdrawing myself from that. And by the by, I believe I shall have occasion to try your obedience this very evening. Now here actually Mr. Hardcastle is going to give the news of the arrival of two people here. Okay, I believe I shall have the occasion to try your obedience this very evening. To try your obedience means I shall have the opportunity, I shall have the occasion, or I shall have the opportunity to try or test your obedience this very evening. Miss Hardcastle says, I protest, sir, I don't comprehend your meaning. Oh, I am protesting, sir, I can't understand what you are saying. Hardcastle says, then to be plain with you, Kate, so let me be very plain and simple with you. I expect the young gentleman I have chosen to be your husband from town this very day. So I am expecting the visit of the young gentleman whom I have chosen you as your husband this very day. I have his father's letter, so I have already got his father's letter in which he informs me his son is set out, in which he has informed me that he has already started with the journey and that he intends to follow himself shortly after. So the friend of Hardcastle is intending to follow his son and join them at a later date, shortly after. Now Mrs. Hardcastle says, indeed, I wish I had known something of this before. So Miss Hardcastle, Kate says, indeed, truly, is it true? I wish I had known something of this before. You could have told me before that they are arriving. Bless me, how shall I behave? Oh God, God help me, how I am going to behave. It's 1,000 to 1 I shall not like him. See, she is very sure that she is not going to like the person. She knows very well that his father is going to bring a person who will just like be her father. Okay, so and Miss Hardcastle is already very tired of the values of her father. Our meeting will be so formal, our meeting will be very formal, not at all informal, and so like a thing of business. It will be very dry, without any emotion, without any excitement, without any thrill. Okay, it will be just like a business contract, and I shall find no room for friendship or esteem. Neither shall I find any scope for friendship or for any respect or getting a favorable opinion about the person who is visiting. Now Hardcastle actually assures Kate now, depend upon it, child, believe upon my words, believe my words. I will never control your choice. I am never going to control your choice. But Mr. Marlowe, whom I have pitched upon means whom I have chosen for you, is the son of my old friend Sir Charles Marlowe. So he is actually the son of my old friend Sir Charles Marlowe, of whom you have heard me talk so often. So I have spoken about my friend Charles Marlowe so very often. The young gentleman has been bred a scholar. So this gentleman has been brought up as a scholar and is designed for an employment in the service of his country. So he is very qualified to get as an employment in the service of his country. I am told he is a man of excellent understanding. So I am actually informed that he is a man of excellent understanding. Now Miss Hardcastle says, is he? Hardcastle, very generous. Miss Hardcastle, I believe I shall like him. Mr. Hardcastle, young and brave. I am sure I shall like him. Mr. Hardcastle says, and very handsome. Miss Hardcastle says, my dear papa, say no more. He is mine. I will have him. Now, the very short exchange of words actually gives us an ample hint that Kate Hardcastle or Miss Hardcastle here pays more attention to the outward looks of a person than the inner mind. Okay, so she is not at all bothered about the values. She is not at all bothered about how the person is turning to be out after marriage. No, she is only bothered about the physical appearance, okay, and the demeanor and the look. Okay, got it? Hardcastle says, and to crown all Kate, he is one of the most beautiful and reserved young fellows in the world. So, the icing on the cake which I am going to say is that he is one of the most bashful and reserved young fellows in the world. Most bashful means most modest, okay, very modest, and a reserved young fellow in the world. He is very reserved, very reticent, okay. Now Miss Hardcastle says, hey, you have frozen me to death again. So by saying bashful and reserved, you have actually frozen me to death. The word reserved has undone all the rest of his accomplishment. So the very word reserved actually has completely ruined all his achievements, all his accomplishments. A reserved lover, it is said, always make a suspicious husband. So who is as a lover who is reserved, he is always going to make as a suspicious husband. Hardcastle says, on the contrary, modesty seldom resides in a breast that is not enriched with nobler virtues. So, a person who is not noble can never be modest. It was this very feature in his character that first struck me. So, this very feature in his character first struck me. Miss Hardcastle says, he must have more striking features to catch me. Again, striking features, the appearance. Okay, I promise you. However, if he is so young, so handsome and so everything according to you, so very handsome, so very everything according to you as you mentioned, I believe he will do still. I think I will have him. Okay, so I think I am going to have him. Now look at the frivolity of Miss Hardcastle. Miss Hardcastle is not at all attaching any kind of importance to her future planning or to her marriage plans. Okay, so this is very clear from the very episode where Miss Hardcastle and her father is actually engaged in a tete-a-tete or a conversation. Okay. Hardcastle says, I kid, but there is still an obstacle. Look at how this man is very pungent. Okay. I kid, there is still an obstacle. It is more than an even wager. He may not have you. See, it's more than an even wager. He may not have you. At the end, he may also refuse you, not only you. Okay. Miss Hardcastle says, my dear Papa, why will you mortify one so? Why are you going to mortify me like that? Well, if he refuses instead of breaking my heart at his indifference, so if he refuses instead of breaking my heart at his indifference, I'll only break my glass for its flattery, set up my cap to some newer fashion, and look out for some less difficult admirer. Okay, so Miss Hardcastle says that instead of breaking heart at his indifference, at the indifference of that person, I'll only break my glass for its flattery. I'll break the glass, I'll break the mirror, because it had been flattering to me. It has deceived me by saying that I look beautiful, by making me appear look beautiful. Set my cap to some newer fashion. I'll change the cap, okay, change the donning of the cap or the wearing of the cap, and look out for some less difficult admirer. Okay, I am going to look out for some less difficult admirer. Hardcastle says, bravely resolved. In the meantime, I'll go prepare the servants for his reception. So the reception is due. So let my servants prepare the reception. As we seldom see company, they want as much training as a company of recruits the first day's master. So here we again understand one thing very well. It's a very old rambling mansion, as mentioned already by Mrs. Hardcastle at the very beginning. So here we see that the servants they are also not properly trained. The servants are also not properly trained. Okay, so we seldom see company, so we don't see them often in our company much, and there is much training as a company of recruit. So there is much training in the company of recruit. The first day is master. Miss Hardcastle says, Lord, this news of Papa puts me all in a flutter. So again, this is a very short soliloquy of Miss Hardcastle. Okay, Mr. Hardcastle has left the stage. So this news of Papa has put me all in a flutter, has given me such an excitement. Young, handsome, the adjectives young, handsome, these he put last, and then I put the foremost. Okay, the foremost, sensible, good natured, I like all that, but then reserved and sheepish. Okay, very reserved and very sheepish. Sheep is very timid, very frightened, by being taught to be proud of his wife. So can't we actually cure his timidity by making him proud of his wife? Yes, and I can't but now I am disposing of the husbands before I have secured the lover. Now comes the realization of Kate Hardcastle that she is thinking too much. She is actually thinking of dealing with the husband even before she has not met Marlowe. Even before she has not won the love of Marlowe, she is thinking about the death. Enter Miss Neville. Now, before Miss Neville enters, I will stop for 3-4 minutes. In the meantime, if you really have any doubt regarding the first part of Act 1, which we have already studied, please ask me so in these 4 to 5 minutes. After that, we will resume. Okay, I hope there is no more questions from your end. So I am beginning with the entry of Miss Neville. Okay. Now we have again another character who enters the scene, Miss Constance Neville. Okay, Miss Constance Neville. Kate and Miss Neville, they are cousins. Okay, they are cousins, and Miss Neville is the niece of Mr. and Mrs. Hardcastle. Niece. I'm glad you have come. I'm so very glad that you have come. Neville, my dear, tell me, Constance, how do I look this evening? Please tell me, Constance, how I am looking this evening. Okay, so how do I look this evening? Is there anything whimsical about me? Is there anything odd about me? Do I look odd? Is it one of my well-looking days? So, is this day the day when I am really looking well? Child, am I in face today? That means, is my face impressive this day? Miss Neville says, perfectly, my dear. Yes, you are so very good. You are so very perfect. Yet now I look again, bless me. Sure, no accidents has happened among the canary birds or the goldfishes. Okay, has there some accident happened among your canary birds and the goldfishes? They are pets to Miss Hardcastle. Has your brother or the cat been meddling? So, has your brother or the cat been meddling, disturbing? Or has the last novel been too moving? Or you are very emotionally moved by the last novel which you have read? Now Miss Hardcastle says, no, nothing of all this. এগুলোর কিছুই হয়নি, nothing of all this. I have been threatened, I can scarce get it out, so I can just put this thing out of my head. I have been threatened with a lover. I have been threatened with a lover, Miss Neville says, and his name is Marlowe. Indeed, the son of Charles Marlowe. Miss Neville says, as I live, the most intimate friend of Mr. Hastings, my admirer, they are never asunder. I believe you must have seen him when we lived in the town. Okay, so as I live, the most intimate friend of Mr. Hastings. Okay, Mr. Hastings is the lover of Constance Neville, and also Neville admires Mr. Hastings. So they are never asunder. So they are never asunder. This Mr. Hastings and Marlowe. Okay, so they are never asunder. They are never apart from each other. I believe you must have seen him when we lived in the town. I hope that you remember seeing Mr. Hastings when we were living in the town. Now Miss Hardcastle says, never. Now Miss Neville says, he is a very singular character, I assure you, among women of reputation and virtue. So among women of good reputation and virtue, he is very gallant. Okay, so he is a very singular character. He is the modestest man alive. So he is the most modest man to be ever living. But his acquaintances give him a very different character among the creatures of another stamp. Do you understand me? So here Miss Neville says, he is a very singular character, I assure you, among women of reputation and virtue. He is the modestest man alive, but his acquaintances give him a very different character among creatures of another stamp. Do you understand me? So he is the most timid and modest looking man, but in the company of women he is very frank. Okay, a very different character, a very frank, very free and very frank. Miss Hardcastle says, an odd character indeed. He is a very strange man indeed. I shall never be able to manage him. I shall never be able to manage this Marlowe. What shall I do? Think no more of him, but trust to occurrences for success. But how goes on your affair, my dear? So what should I do now? Should I trust to the occurrences, whatever is going to happen, the chances and coincidences, and not to think more of him? But how goes on your own affair? Now she actually changes the topic and says, how goes on your own affair with Mr. Hastings, of course, my dear. Has my mother been courting you for my brother Tony as usual? So here we get to know one important information, that Mrs. Hardcastle had actually chosen Constance Neville for Tony. Okay, Miss Neville, I have just come from one of our agreeable tete-a-tetes. Okay, tete-a-tetes means face-to-face conversation. She has been saying 100 tender things. She is very tender to me. She is very well-mannered towards me, and she has been saying 100 tender things and setting off her pretty monster as the very pink of perfection. Okay, Miss Hardcastle says, and her partiality is such that she actually thinks him so. A fortune like yours is no small temptation. A fortune like yours is also a great temptation for her. You must remember this. Besides, as she has the sole management of it, she is in the sole management of it, I am not surprised to see her unwilling to let it go out of the family. So she is not at all trying to let this whole fortune go out of the family. So she is actually making a match between the duo of the same family. Okay, in the family itself. Mrs. Neville says, a fortune like mine, which chiefly consists in jewels, is no such mighty temptation. It's not a huge temptation, but at any rate, if my dear Hastings be but constant, I make doubt to be too hard for her at last. However, I let her suppose that I am in love with her son, and she never once dreams that my affections are fixed upon another. Okay, so now Miss Neville says, my fortune, which is largely in the form of jewelry, not cash, okay, not money, can hardly be a great temptation. It can never be a great provocation. However, in any case, so she says that but at any rate, if my dear Hastings be but constant, be anything but constant, I make no doubt to be too hard for her at last. However, I let her suppose that I am in love with her son. So I give the impression to Mrs. Hardcastle that I am in love with her son Tony. Okay. And she never once dreams that my affections are fixed upon another. My love is fixed on Mr. Hastings. Now Mrs. Hardcastle says, my good brother holds out stoutly. My good brother is also very firm and very resolved. I could almost love him for hating you so. So I love him so much because he hates you. Mrs. Neville says, it is a good natured creature at bottom, and I am sure would wish to see me married to anybody but himself. So he is actually a good-natured man by heart. Who? Tony. And he would be glad to see me married at any man except himself. But my aunt's bell rings for our afternoon's walk round the improvements. Alon's courage is necessary as our affairs are critical. So I need courage because our affairs has taken a very critical turn now. Okay. Miss Hardcastle says, would it were bedtime and all were well. So she actually wished that it was bedtime and they could enjoy a sound sleep and all the trouble would have come to an end. So here we come to the end of Act 1, Scene 1. Now I give you 2 minutes, only 2 minutes. If you have any question regarding Act 1, Scene 1, please do them so before I move on to Act 1, Scene 2. Okay. Now beginning with Act 1, Scene 2. Now see, I have been going line by line in Act 1, Scene 1. Now I will not go line by line in Act 1, Scene 2. Okay. So I hope আমি তোমাদেরকে বোঝাতে পেরেছি যে তোমাদের কিভাবে পড়া উচিত। ঠিক আছে, তো অ্যাক্ট 1 সিন 1টা আমরা পুরো একদম ডিটেলেই পড়ে নিয়েছি। তো অ্যাক্ট 1 সিন 2টা আমরা একটু হপ স্কিপ অ্যান্ড জাম্প করব, আর তার সাথে সাথে একটু রেলেভেন্ট লাইন্সগুলো পড়ব, প্লাস আমি কিন্তু তোমাদেরকে একদম বলে দেবো যে কোথায় কি হচ্ছে না হচ্ছে, সেটা তো অফকোর্স বলে দেবো। তো নাও we see that Act 1 Scene 2 is set in an alehouse room. Several shabby fellows with punch and tobacco. Tony at the head of the table, a little higher than the rest, a mallet in his hand. Okay. So the scene shifts. The scene shifts to the alehouse. And we see Tony in the company of these shabby vile fellows. They are drinking and they are merrymaking, okay, and they are doing all sorts of nonsense, which Mr. Hardcastle and Mrs. Hardcastle, they actually apprehended. We see Tony now, people, they are shabbily clad, okay, and punch is actually just like a cocktail, okay, so when you mix liquor with lemon juice, okay. Now Tony is actually presiding at the head of the table, and he is having a mallet in his hand. Mallet is a small hammer with which he is seen actually hammering the table, okay, striking the table. Now Tony is seen singing a song. Tony is seen singing a song, and the song actually is a song which defies the schoolmasters and welcomes good wine, okay, because according to Tony, wine gives a better understanding of life than school teaching, okay. Here Tony also attacks the Methodist preachers, okay, who preach that drinking is a sinful activity, okay, but they themselves again in turn indulge in hard drinking. So according to Tony, the best thing to do is to merrymake and is to be very clever, and actually rise up your spirits with the help of liquor. His companions are seen admiring Tony and the song, and they are cheering him loudly, okay. So they assert that they have nothing to do with the very suave, the genteel society, the very refined society, but they still claim themselves to be gentlemen, which is very ironical. They all wish that Tony would come to his own, because hello, just a second. Yes, okay. So there was a problem with the connection, so I had to stop a bit. So and then they praise Tony's father, okay, Mr. Lumpkin, okay, the squire, as the finest man that they have ever seen, okay. So because come to the text and you will understand what they are up to. See, I am straight away coming to the song. Let schoolmasters puzzle their brain with grammar and nonsense and learning, you will well understand. Good liquor, I stoutly maintain, gives genius a better discerning. Let them brag of their heathenish gods, their Lethis, their Styxes and their Stygians, their Quis and their Quays and their codes. They all are but a parcel of pigeons. Toddle. When Methodist preachers come down are preaching that drinking is sinful, I told you that they are attacking the Methodist preachers, okay, who actually preach that drinking is sinful. I will wager the rascals a crown, they always preach best with a skinful. But when you come down with your pens for a slice of their scurvy religion, I will leave it to all men of sense, but you, my good friend, are the pigeon. Now again the refrain, toradil, toradil, toral. Then come, put the joram about. Okay, the pass the liquor about. Let us be merry and clever. Our hearts and our liquors are stout. Here's the three jolly pigeons forever. Okay, the three pigeons, the name of the inn or the name of the ale house. Let some cry up, woodcock or hare, you bastards, your ducks and your pigeons. But all of the birds in the air he has held to the three jolly pigeons. Nothing is much more important regarding this song. Just see that they are attacking the schoolmaster and they are attacking the Methodist church and the gentile society. Okay. Now omnes is means all of them together they are saying bravo, bravo. First fellow says the squire has got spunk in him. Okay, so this squire refers to Tony. I love to hear him sing. This squire refers to Tony. Okay, not Mr. Lumpkin, because he never gives nothing that's low. So he never sings anything common. So he's very extraordinary, he's very uncommon. Oh damn, anything that's slow, I cannot bear it. So here actually it's gibberish of the drunkard people. Fourth fellow, the gentle thing is the gentle thing at any time, if so be that a gentleman be in a concatenation accordingly. I like the maxim of it, Mr. Master Miggins. You can skip all these. Okay, you can skip all these now. Now come to the second fellow where he says, oh, he takes after his own father for that. Okay. To be sure, old Squire Lumpkin was the finest gentleman I have ever set my eyes on. For winding the straight horn or beating a thicket for a hare or a wench, he never had his fellow. It was a saying in the place, and he kept the best horses, dogs, and girls in the whole country. Okay, so just go through this speech. They say that in every respect Tony Lumpkin is actually a copy of his father. So they are saying that they are of the opinion that old Squire Lumpkin, Tony's actual father, was the finest gentleman that they have ever come across. Okay, so here at the last line, the second fellow says that it was popularly said that he kept best horses, dogs and girls in the whole country. So here is actually a reference to the licentiousness of Mr. Lumpkin. Tony, ecod means by God, and when I am of age, I will be no bastard. Okay, I will be proving myself as the true son of my father. Okay, I promise you, I have been thinking of the bet bouncer and the miller's grey mare to begin with. Okay. But come, my boys, drink and shout, be merry, for you pay no reckoning. Well, Stingo, what's the matter? So let's have some good drink, let's have some good beer. So now enters the landlord. Landlord says there be two gentlemen in a post chaise at the door. Okay, in a coach at the door. They have lost their way up to the forest, and they are talking about something about Mr. Hardcastle. So they have lost their way in the woods and they are talking something about Mr. Hardcastle. Tony says, as sure as can be, one of them must be the gentleman that's coming down to court my sister. So Tony understands that this is one of them must be Marlowe. Okay, do they seem to be Londoners? Okay, do they seem that they are coming from London? Landlord say, I believe they may, I think they may. They look woundily like Frenchmen, so they look wonderfully like Frenchmen, but that means they are so very fashionably dressed. Okay, Tony says, then desire them to step this way. Desire them means ask them to come this way, and I will set them right in a twinkling. That means in a right moment I will ask them to go there. Exit landlord. Gentlemen, as they may not be good enough company for you, step down for a moment and I'll be with you in the squeezing of a lemon. So I'm going to just join you. You squeeze a lemon, you just give that small time to me, I will be back. Okay, I'll be back for your company. Now exeunt the mob. The The people in the alehouse, they actually move out. Okay. Tony alone. Tony says, father-in-law has been calling me whelp and hound this half year. Now, if I pleased, I could be so revenged upon the old Grumbletonian. But then I am afraid of what? I shall soon be worth 1,500 a year, and let him frighten me out of that if he can. Okay, so he again here we have a very short soliloquy of Tony. Okay, Tony is speaking to himself. Okay, so my father-in-law has been calling me whelp and hound this half year. So for a year, my father-in-law actually is a very sarcastic remark about Mr. Hardcastle. Instead of calling him stepfather, he is calling Mr. Hardcastle father-in-law. Okay, father-in-law has been calling me whelp, a dog. Okay, now if I am pleased, I could be so revenged upon the old Grumbletonian. Okay, so if I choose, if I wish, I can take my full revenge upon the old grumbling man. But then I am afraid. Afraid of what? What am I afraid of? I shall soon be worth 1,500 a year. Now I shall soon inherit a fortune worth 1,500 a year, and let him frighten me out of that if he can. So when I will be getting that, okay, getting that fortune, I inherit that fortune, let me see how he can frighten me. Okay, he cannot take it away from me, so he can never take the amount away from me. Now enter the landlord, conducting Marlowe and Hastings. So Marlowe and Hastings, they come. Marlowe, what a tedious, uncomfortable day we have had of it. We were told it was but 40 miles across the country, and we have come above 3 scores. We have come nearly 60 miles. So it had been such a boring, a tedious and a cumbersome day. Hastings, and all Marlowe, from that unaccountable reserve of yours, that would not let us inquire more frequently on the way. Okay, so Hastings says that all of this has happened because of your unaccountable reserve. You are very reserved without any purpose. Okay, unnecessary. You are hesitant. Okay, and that would not let us inquire more frequently on the way, and so we have not asked many people about the way, and we therefore lost the way. Marlowe says, I own Hastings. I agree, Hastings, about it. I am unwilling to lay myself under an obligation to everyone I meet. So, I don't want to take a obligation from everyone or from all and sundry whom I meet. And often I stand the chance of an unmannerly answer. So, often it has been my experience that I have asked people and they have answered me very rudely. So, I have stopped asking them. Hastings says, at present, however, we are not likely to receive any answer. Now, at present, no one is going to give us any answer. Tony says, no offense, gentlemen, but I am told you have been inquiring for one Mr. Hardcastle in these parts. Now, Tony interrupts the conversation and says that, please don't take offense, I am interrupting. I have been told that you people are inquiring about Mr. Hardcastle in these parts. Do you know what part of the country you are in? Do you know which part of the country you have come? Hastings, no, not in the least. Not in the least. But should you, thank you for your information. But if you give the information, I'll be thankful to you. Tony, not the way you came. So, Hastings, no sir, if you can inform us. So, you don't know the way you have come? Tony asks, and Hastings says, no sir, if you can inform us. Tony, why gentlemen? If you know neither the road you are going, nor where you are, nor the road you came, the first thing I have to inform you is that you have lost your way. Marlowe says, we wanted no ghost to tell us that. It's an obvious fact. We don't want you to tell that. Tony says, pray gentlemen, may I be so bold to ask the place from whence you came? Okay, so may I ask you from where you have come, although I know that it is not necessary to ask. Marlowe says, that's not necessary towards directing us where we are to go. So that's not necessary to tell us the way or the destination to where we are going. Why do you need to know from where are we coming? Tony says, no offense, but question for question is all fair. Question for question is all fair. Pray, gentlemen, is not this same Hardcastle a cross-grained, old-fashioned, whimsical fellow with an ugly face, a daughter, and a pretty son? Okay, so are you inquiring about that Mr. Hardcastle, who has been very cross-grained, old-fashioned? Okay, cross-grained means who is very pervert by nature. Okay, very old-fashioned, whimsical, very eccentric, okay, very whimsical, with an ugly face, okay, who looks very ugly, and a daughter, who has a daughter, and a pretty son, and a charming son? Hastings, we have not seen the gentleman, we haven't met the gentleman before, but he has the family you mentioned. Tony says, the daughter a tall, trapezing, trolloping, talkative maypole, the son a very pretty, well-bred, agreeable youth that everybody is fond of. See, now how Tony is saying Kate is a tall, trapezing means very shabby, trolloping, untidy, and talkative maypole. Okay, so very talkative girl. And the son of Mr. Hardcastle is very well-bred, well brought up, agreeable, very good natured. Okay, and everybody is fond of this son, Marlowe. Our information differs in this. We have our information, but our information is different. The daughter is said to be well-bred. We know that the daughter is well-bred and beautiful, as for son, an awkward booty reared up and spoiled at his mother's apron string. Okay, so it's very the son is said to be very awkward, very ill-mannered, and a very spoiled child, spoiled by the mother itself, herself. Tony, the gentleman, all I have to you is that you won't reach Mr. Hardcastle's house this night, I believe. Now he changes the topic of the conversation and says, I know that you won't be able to reach Mr. Hardcastle's house, your destination, this night. Hastings, unfortunate. It's a damn long, dark, boggy, dirty, dangerous way. Stingo, tell the gentleman the way to Mr. Hardcastle, winking upon the landlord. Mrs. Hardcastle of Quagmire Marsh, you understand me? So he actually lives in a marshy land. Landlord, Mr. Hardcastle's, lack a daisy, my master, you are come a deadly deal wrong. Okay, so you have gone a dreadfully wrong way. When you have come to the bottom of the hill, you should have crossed down Squash Lane. So when you have already come to the bottom of the hill, you should have taken this Squash Lane. Marlowe, cross down Squash Lane. So should we have crossed down the Squash Lane? Landlord, then you had to keep straight forward. You have to maintain forward until you came back to Four Roads. Marlowe says, come to where Four Roads meet. Tony, aye, but you must be sure to take only one of them. Okay, yes, of course you must come to where the Four Roads meet, but you have to take only one of them. Marlowe says, oh sir, you are so facetious. Tony, that means witty. Tony, then keeping to the right, you are to go sideways till you come back upon Crackskull Common. Okay, Crackskull Common is a Crackskull Heath. There you must look sharp for the track of the wheel. You must look for the sharp track of the wheel where the vehicles go, and go forward till you come to Farmer Murray's barn. Coming to the farmer's barn, you are to turn to the right and then to the left and then to the right again till you find the old mill. Now they are actually wholly, completely confusing. Tony is making the two persons, okay, Marlowe and Hastings, completely confused about the way. Marlowe, sounds man, but we could as find out the way longitude. So it's better to find it is easier to find the place from the longitude. Hastings, what's to be done, Marlowe? What's to be done now? Marlowe says, this house promises but a poor reception, though perhaps the landlord can accommodate us. Okay, so this house means the ale house promises but a poor reception. Hardly this ale house is suitable for us to stay for even the night. provide us comfortable boarding and lodging. Okay, so but we hope that the landlord can adjust something, can accommodate us. Landlord, alas masters, we have but one spare bed in the whole house. We have just only one spare bed in the whole house. Tony says, and to my knowledge, that's taken up by the 3 lodgers already. So that has been taken up by the 3 customers. After a pause in which the rest seemed disconcerted, I have hit it. Don't you think, Stingo, our landlady could accommodate the gentleman by the fireside with 3 chairs and a bolster? Hastings says, I hate sleeping by the fireside. Marlowe, and I detest your 3 chairs and a bolster. So they are not at all compromising by nature. Tony, you do. But then let me see. But if you go on a mile further to the Buck's Head, the old Buck's Head on the hill, one of the best inns in the whole country. So that is the best inn in the whole country, but you have to move forward. Hastings, oh ho, so we have escaped an adventure for this night, however. Landlord says, apart to Tony, sure, you have been sending them to your father's as an inn. So you are trying to send them to your father's house as an inn. So you are actually trying to pass off your father's house as an inn. Tony, mum, you fool, you. Mum means keep quiet, you fool, you. Let them find that out. Let them find that out to them. You have only to keep on your straight forward till you come to a large old house by the roadside. So before coming to you have to go straight till you come to a large road by the roadside. Okay, you will see a pair of large horns on the door. There are a pair of large horns on the door. That is the sign. Drive up to the yard and call shoutly about you. Hastings, sir, we are obliged to you. We are very thankful to you. The servants can't miss the way. So our attendants can't miss the way. Tony, no, but I tell you though, the landlord is rich and going to leave off business. So the landlord is very rich. So he wants it to be thought a gentleman saving your presence. He will be for company, for giving you his company, and by God, if you mind him, I will persuade you that his mother was an alderman and his aunt a justice of peace. Landlord say a troublesome old blade, to be sure, but he keeps as good wines and beds as any in the whole country. Marlowe says, well, if he supplies up with these, we shall want no further connection. We aren't to turn to the right, did you say? Tony says, no, straight forward. I'll just step myself and show you a piece this way. Landlord, bless your heart for a sweet pleasure, damn mischievous son of a whore. Okay, so we come to the end of Act 1, Scene 2, and here actually there are not so many important lines, okay, which you have to read. Just be familiar with the story of Act 1, Scene 2 and the song which actually Tony sings, and the friends of Tony, what they say about the old Mr. Lumpkin. Okay, these are the only thing, and how they actually make Hastings and Marlowe a fool and tries to direct them to Mr. Hardcastle's house as an inn. That is very important in this scene. Okay, so we come to an end of Act 1. Both Act 1, Scene 1 and Act 1, Scene 2 stand completed. So if you really have any question or if you really have any doubt, please ask me so, because it's already 12:05. I am going to conclude the class for today, কারণ আমি আজকে একটু আমার খুব পরিশ্রম গেছে, আজ একটু টায়ার্ড আছি বলে আমি আজকে আর কন্টিনিউ করব না ক্লাসটা। উই উইল মিট অ্যাগেন দ্য নেক্সট ডে, সেটা আমি কবে হবে বলে দিচ্ছি, ইন দ্য নেক্সট উইক। কালকে কোনো ক্লাস হচ্ছে না। যদি তোমাদের এখন কোনো এটা নিয়ে ডাউট থাকে বা কিছু জানবার থাকে তাহলে আমাকে কোয়েশ্চেন করো। আমি 5 মিনিট অপেক্ষা করব, তারপরে আই উইল কনক্লুড দ্য ক্লাস।
স্যার আমি একটা মানে কোশ্চেন জানার ছিল আর কি। am I audible?
হ্যাঁ বলো।
স্যার বলছি যে এখানে টনির যে স্পিচটাতে ওই যে আপন ক্র্যাক স্কাল কমন, তো এটা কি আলাদা কোনো সিগনিফিকেন্স আছে ক্র্যাক স্কাল কমন যেটা?
আমি বুঝতে পারলাম না কোনখানটা বলছো বলো।
স্যার ওই টনির স্পিচটাতে একটা জায়গায় আছে না যে দেন কিপিং টু দ্য রাইট ইউ আর টু গো টু দ্য সাইড ওয়েজ, যেখানে ডিরেকশন ইউ কাম আপন ক্র্যাক স্কাল কমন, তো ইউ মাস্ট লুক শার্প ফর দ্য ট্র্যাপ।
তোমার ভয়েসটা খুব কেটে কেটে যাচ্ছে, তুমি আমাকে বলো এটা অ্যাক্ট 1 সিন 1 না সিন 2 তে?
সিন 2 তে।
সিন 2 তে?
এটা আমরা
হ্যাঁ সিন 2 কোনখানটা বলো।
স্যার টনির একটা স্পিচ আছে ওই মার্লো যেখানে বলছে যে ও স্যার ইউ আর ফেসিশিয়াস, তখন টনি বলছে না যে দেন কিপিং টু দ্য রাইট ইউ আর টু গো টু দ্য সাইড ওয়েজ টিল ইউ কাম আপন ক্র্যাক স্কাল কমন।
ও আচ্ছা 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 আচ্ছা, হ্যাঁ বুঝতে পেরেছি বুঝতে পেরেছি, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলো। ওই ওই স্পিচটা কি এক্সপ্লেন করে দেবো?
না 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 স্যার, আমি বলছি যে ক্র্যাক স্কাল কমন এটার কি আলাদা কোনো সিগনিফিকেন্স আছে?
আচ্ছা 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 আচ্ছা, আই গেট ইউর পয়েন্ট, আই গেট ইউর পয়েন্ট, হ্যাঁ আই এম কামিং টু ইট, আই এম কামিং টু ইট। হ্যাঁ আর কিছু আছে কি তোমার জানার এখান থেকে?
না না স্যার, আর ঠিক আছে।
আচ্ছা 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 ওকে। আচ্ছা এনি মোর কোয়েশ্চেন? আমি একবারই আসবো। আর কারো কোয়েশ্চেন আছে কি?
দাদা
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলো।
বলছি বলছি যে এই যে নাটকটা আমরা তো জানি যে এটা অ্যান্টি সেন্টিমেন্টাল কমেডি,
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
কিন্তু গোল্ডস্মিথের এই নাটকটাকে অনেক জায়গাতে আবার লাফিং কমেডি বলছে,
হ্যাঁ
তো এই ব্যাপারে কি তোমার কোনো কিছু বলার আছে?
আমি বলবো, হ্যাঁ বলবো অবশ্যই বলবো। আমরা একটুখানি মানে টেক্সটটাকে এগিয়ে নেব, তারপরে এই জিনিসগুলো আমি একটু আলোচনা করব।
ওকে।
মানে অ্যাক্ট 1 থেকে যদি কারুর আর কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে তো বলো, নাহলে আমি আমাকে যে প্রশ্নটা করলো এই ক্র্যাক স্কালের ব্যাপারে, এগুলো হচ্ছে ওই যেমন দেখো ওই ফার্মার মুরেন্স রয়েছে, এগুলো হচ্ছে সমস্ত ইনভেনশনস অফ টনি, মানে এগুলো হচ্ছে ওর একেবারেই ফিগমেন্ট অফ ইম্যাজিনেশন, তৎক্ষণাৎ আর কি এ করে বলে দিচ্ছে। তো সেটাই, এখানে আর নতুন এমনি কোনো সিগনিফিকেন্ট সেভাবে কিছু নেই, ঠিক আছে? তো জাস্ট আর কি ওই ডিরেকশনটা দেওয়ার সময় বলে দিচ্ছে আর কি। আর যদি কারোর কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে বলো। আমি একটুখানি আর বাকি এবার ধরো অ্যাক্ট 1টা হয়ে গেল, এবার তোমাদের তো মোটামুটি হয়েই যাচ্ছে, একটু এগিয়ে যাচ্ছে, আর একটু এগিয়ে দিই তো আমি অবশ্যই ওগুলো ইয়ে করব, কিছু কিছু ক্রিটিক্যাল ইয়ে আমি আলোচনা করে দেবো একটা ক্লাসে, তো সেটাতে অসুবিধা হবে না। তো ওটা আমার মাথায় রইলো তুমি যেটা বললে।
দাদা একটা লাস্ট একটা জিনিস
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
বলতে চাইছি,
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
যে এমনি আমি যে টেক্সটটা থেকে পড়েছি
হুম
ওই রবার্ট হেরিং এর একটা টেক্সট
হুম
আছে রাধার,
হুম হুম হুম।
এটা বাদে কি তোমার কাছে কোনো ইন্ডিয়ান এডিশন আছে ভালো ক্রিটিক্যাল টেক্সট, মানে ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউ বাদ দিয়ে?
হ্যাঁ, ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউ এডিশনটা তো ভালোই। ইন্ডিয়ান
আচ্ছা,
এডিশন বলতে তুমি আর কি, ইন্ডিয়ান এডিশন আর কি পাবে বলো?
হ্যাঁ মানে আমি জানতে চাইছিলাম আসলে ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউটা আমার কাছে নেই, কিন্তু ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউ আমি মানে আরেকটা বই পেয়েছি, তো আমি তোমাকে ওটা পাঠাবো, ঠিক আছে? দিয়ে কয়েকটা জিনিস জানতে যাবো, তুমি পরে নাটকটা শেষ হয়ে গেলে একটু ওটা একটু দেখো।
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই, তুমি আমাকে পাঠিও, আমি দেখবো। এমনিতে এমনিতে দেখো, মানে ইন্ডিয়ান এডিশনের খুব ভালো কিছু নেই, ঠিক আছে?
হুম।
ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউ এডিশনটা কি তোমার কাছে আছে?
না আমার কাছে নেই, তো কিন্তু এর আগে ম্যাকমিলানের একটা ভালো এডিশন ছিল, ওটা এখন আউট অফ প্রিন্ট।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
ম্যাকমিলান ইন্ডিয়া।
হ্যাঁ বুঝতে পেরেছি, বুঝতে পেরেছি, বুঝতে পেরেছি।
ঠিক আছে।
ঠিক আছে, হোপফুলি আর কারোর কোয়েশ্চেন নেই। আমি মোস্ট প্রবাবলি আগামী ক্লাসটা টিউসডে নেব। এবার তোমরা আমাকে এইখানে বলতে পারো যে টিউসডেতে, হ্যাঁ শি স্টুপস টু কঙ্কার আমি আরেকটু এগাবো বটেই, এক টুটা ধরে নেবো। আর একটা জিনিস হচ্ছে যে এছাড়া আমি আর কি ডিসকাস করব এই টিউসডে, কামিং টিউসডে, সেইটা আমাকে একটুখানি বলতে পারো। আমার একটা ইয়ে আছে, সেটা হচ্ছে আমি জর্জ বার্নার্ড শয়ের এসে ফ্রিডামটা মানে করব বলে ভেবেছি। এবার তোমাদের যদি মনে হয় যে অন্য কিছু ফ্রিডাম ছাড়া, তো সেইটা হলে ভালো হয়। তাহলে তোমরা আমাকে কালকের মধ্যে বলবে যেটা হওয়ার, মানে যেটা দরকার তোমাদের প্রয়োজন, তাহলে সেইটা আমি টিউসডে ডিসকাস করব। আর শি স্টুপস টু কঙ্কারে আমরা এক টুটা সেদিনকে পড়ব। শি স্টুপসটা যেমন চলছে চলুক, এটা যেমন হচ্ছে হোক, তার সাথে সাথে কিছু আরও এক্সট্রা হোক আর কি। তো মঙ্গলবার দিন আমি একটু টাইম পাবো, মানে একটু বেশিক্ষণ ক্লাস নিতে পারবো রাদার। আজকে তো 12টা এখন 15, অ্যাটলিস্ট 12:30 অবধি তো পারবোই। তো তখন আমরা একটুখানি শি স্টুপসটা অল্প অল্প করে পড়ে, আর শি স্টুপসটা এখন তোমরা ধরতে পেরে গেছো যে কীভাবে কী পড়া হচ্ছে, অতএব এখন খুব বেশি ডিটেলে যাওয়ার দরকার হচ্ছে না। যেমন অল্প অল্প এক্সপ্লেনেশন করে দিচ্ছি, তোমরা নিজেরাও বুঝতে পারবে পড়ে। আর যে যে জায়গাগুলো দরকার সেই জায়গাগুলো করিয়ে দিলেই হয়ে যাবে। যেমন আমি তোমাদের তো বলে দিলাম যে অ্যাক্ট 1 সিন 2তে বিশেষ কিছু ফ্রম দি কোয়েশ্চেন পয়েন্ট অফ ভিউ নেই, ঠিক আছে? তো সেগুলো করে নেবে। তো হয়ে যাচ্ছে যখন, তাহলে তোমরা মোটামুটি কালকের মধ্যে একটু জানিও যদি তোমাদের কোনো ইয়ে থাকে, যে তোমরা কোনো শর্ট স্টোরি চাইছো নাকি, ফ্লাই বা অক্স বা অ্যারাবি এরকম কিছু চাইছো নাকি। আমাকে মৃণাল বলেছিল ফ্রিডামটা করাতে, ফ্রিডামটা, তো আমি ফ্রিডামটা ভেবেছি করাবো। তো এবার যদি তোমাদের আর কোনো সাজেশন থাকে তাহলে তোমরা আমাকে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে গ্রুপে জানিও, তো আমি সেই মতো ক্লাস করব। ক্লাস মানে শিডিউলড ক্লাস মঙ্গলবার দিন রাত্রিরে, ঠিক আছে? কাল পরশু ক্লাস নেই, মঙ্গলবার দিন রাত্রে শিওর ক্লাস হচ্ছে। আর সেখানে শি স্টুপস টু কঙ্কারের বাকি আমরা এক টুটা ধরবো, আর বাকিটা কোনটা তোমরা করতে চাইছো সেটা আমাকে জানিও। তো সেই অনুযায়ী অ্যাকর্ডিংলি আমি বলে দেবো তোমাদেরকে, ঠিক আছে? তাহলে আজকের জন্য গুড নাইট জানাচ্ছি। আর আমি, তোমরা যেটা বললে সেটা, তুমি যে শেষকালে বললে যে ওই আমি এডিশনের ব্যাপারটা আমি দেখে নিচ্ছি, ওয়ার্ল্ড ভিউ ছাড়া যদি আর কোনো ভালো এডিশন আমি পাই দেখতে। ম্যাকমিলানটা তুমি তো বলছো আউট অফ প্রিন্ট, ইন্ডিয়ান এডিশন আর কি ভালো হবে এগুলো ছাড়া, তবু আমি দেখবো একবার।
হ্যাঁ আসলে
হ্যাঁ
আসলে দাদা আমি একজনের কাছ থেকে জানতে পেরেছি যে কোয়েশ্চেন যারা করেন
হ্যাঁ
তারা সম্ভবত অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর বা তার
হ্যাঁ
যারা
হ্যাঁ
আছে মানে
অবশ্যই
প্রফেসর,
অবশ্যই।
ইনারাই করেন। তো
হ্যাঁ
সেক্ষেত্রে মানে মার্কেটে যে বইগুলো আছে ওগুলো যদি আমরা একটু কনসেপ্ট করতে পারি
হ্যাঁ
তাহলে আমার মনে হচ্ছে একটু ভালো হয়।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে,
তো
ঠিক আছে,
এবার
আমি তবু দেখে
মালদাতে তো
নিচ্ছি।
সেরকম ভাবে লাইব্রেরি ব্যাপার নেই।
হ্যাঁ
তো তুমি যেখানে আছো রয়েছো এখন, তোমার যেহেতু পড়াশোনা আলাদা জায়গায়, সেখানে কেমন কি অ্যাক্সেস করেছো আমার জানা নেই। তাই জন্য আমি আসলে ওটা জানতে চাইলাম।
না না ঠিক আছে, অফকোর্স ঠিক আছে, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই সেটার ব্যাপারে। তুমি বলছো যখন, আমি দেখে নেবো যে আর কোনো ভালো এডিশন পাচ্ছি না। আমি নিজে না জানলেও আমি এমনও লোক আছে তাদেরকে একটু জিজ্ঞেস করলেও আমি পেয়ে যাবো।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
ঠিক
হ্যাঁ,
আছে,
ওটার
তো
জন্যই
আমি
বললাম তোমাকে
আমি
আমি।
অবশ্যই মানে আমার
ঠিক
চেনা জানাদেরকে জিজ্ঞেস করে নেবো, যদি কোনো আমি ভালো এডিশন পাই অবশ্যই আমি জানিয়ে দেবো। ঠিক আছে, হুম, ঠিক আছে,
ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক
ওকে
ইউ।
ওকে, গুড নাইট অল অফ ইউ। তো উই আর মিটিং অন টিউসডে अगेन। থ্যাংক ইউ।